The Morrison government has announced a further $12 million for research to improve treatment for the nation's two biggest killers, cardiovascular disease and stroke. Well, joining me now is Health Minister Greg Hunt. Minister, good morning to you. How much of a difference can this make?
This funding, I think, is very important. We know that cardiovascular disease is Australia's biggest killer, and the stroke funding, $4 million of this funding specifically for childhood stroke. And it would be, I think, a big shock to many Australians to know that 600 beautiful young children have some form of stroke every year. Agonisingly, 1 in 20 of them will lose their battle. And so this is about early diagnosis, early treatment, what you do in those first few minutes and hours, and to be able to make an intervention that can save a life. If we do that with one life, all this funding will be worth it. But I think we can make a profound long-term difference.
Minister, on to travel. We had the Trade and Tourism Minister on our show a little bit earlier. He mentioned that overseas travel is probably not going to open up until next year for those leaving. How long would you be comfortable with the other way around? So with people coming to Australia, how long should visitors be staying in hotels under quarantine for? I mean, could that be going deep into next year as well?
I think there is a significant prospect that our borders will not open for some considerable time in terms of incoming travel. But there are two ways that we can assist on that front. One is the use of hotel quarantine. That's a very effective mechanism. It's protecting Australians, it's bringing people here, and we have the potential to expand out the use of that hotel quarantine to international students, to business travellers, to people who might be coming for long stay vacation purposes later on. And then, of course, there's the non-quarantine COVID-safe bubble with New Zealand, and if that's successful, then we would consider that with other COVID-safe countries. So it will take a bit of time, but it is the single thing which is keeping us safe from these enormous spikes in global numbers, which are accelerating now at a faster rate than ever.
Overseas travel is our biggest enemy, isn't it? I mean, we've got another outbreak that's taking place in Beijing. You had this instance that happened in New Zealand yesterday where a couple of people left quarantine and then came back positive. Then you've got an outbreak in Melbourne, 15 or 16 new cases, all from overseas travellers.
That's correct. So there were 15 cases in Victoria from overseas travellers, all safely contained within the hotel quarantine system. Another 2 around the country, so 17 from overseas yesterday, all around the country. We need to bring our Australians home. They want to come home, and so we're giving them a pathway home. But this is a way of doing it safely to protect Australians, and it's working for us, and it's keeping the disease out whilst allowing us to bring people home. But it's a mechanism which we can use more in order to help with some of the economic challenges whilst protecting Australians.
Minister, I just want to get your thoughts on this dexamethasone. There's been studies out in the UK that seem successful. It can help save the lives of 1 in 8 people, I believe, on ventilators. Do you approve its use in Australia in treatment of COVID-19?
So the medical expert panel, what's known as the Australian Health Protection Principal Committee, yesterday met. They considered the trial. They put out a public statement saying it was a high-quality trial. They believe that dexamethasone has a use potentially in Australia, not as a prevention, not as a cure, but only as a treatment for the very highly ill patients. We are down to 3 in ICU, 2 of whom are on ventilation at the moment. But I met with the Chief Medical Officer, Professor Murphy, last night, and he indicated that there are supplies of the medicine. It is routinely used for other purposes within hospitals, and so it's available now if the clinicians, the doctors, believe that highly ill patients need it. It is a very promising treatment.
OK, just a couple of quick ones before you go. Anthony Byrne, these very colourful text messages that have been released. Do you think that he should stay in that position as Deputy Chair of the Parliamentary Joint Committee on Intelligence and Security?
Well, Mr Albanese will have to make a decision about his team, explain what standards he believes are acceptable. It's his team, it's his person. This is Mr Albanese's hand-picked appointment to that team.
And just finally, do you support Daniel Andrews' comments yesterday that suggested why would you go to South Australia as a Victorian?
No, I don't. I think all of our Australian states are fantastic.
All right, OK. Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for joining us.